Now, I know there's still one game left to go in Game Week 34 at the time that I'm recording this video, but for me, in Game Week 35, my team is fairly settled. So far, I've scored 88 points and I'm up to 29k overall. And here is my team selection. All right, we'll just have a quick run through as to how my team's gotten on in Game Week 34 so far. As you can see there, my free hit is active. I've been on my free hit for Game Week 34. My defense is done. It's done really well. You know, some defenses have done better. People have got, they will have Jose Sarr. Sorry, I was getting the goalkeeper that made the penalty save then. It was Jose Sarr, Sessegnon, who you can see there is actually on my bench, Trippier and Aït-Nouri. They would have combined for another 11 and another 5 points. It's crazy. And an extra 16 points. Well, I'm sorry, an extra, would that be 10 or so points on top of what my team has scored? Is what it is. You know, you can't pick them all. And in my opinion, going back to the information that I had at the time when picking my free hit, I think I went with the right calls. I favoured the minutes and I favoured, you know, the most likely teams to keep a clean sheet. And going into the game week, I felt Cucurella's minutes were going to be more secure than Sessegnon's, and I also felt that Chelsea had more of a chance of keeping a clean sheet than Fulham did. Obviously, that turned out to be the case. Southampton opened the scoring in that game. I also felt that Pope probably had the best, well, I'd say minutes, because Jose Sarr got injured in the warm-up, I believe, of the Man United game. So, whilst, you know, there was a good chance that he was going to start and declared fit, getting injured the week before is never the best sign. And also, I just felt Newcastle at home had more of a chance of keeping a clean sheet. Had Jose Sarr not saved that penalty, of course, that wouldn't have happened for Wolves, but obviously he didn't and got the points for it. So, you know, I'm quite happy with the decision I made there. All of my defenders keeping clean sheets and 2 of them getting attacking returns. That's probably, I think, the best points I've had from a defence any game week this season, basically. Onto the midfield, we had Salah as my captain, obviously with the goal and in the selfie with the cop. Luis Diaz with a goal as well. Really pleased that I picked the 2 of them. I was a little bit unsure about going for Luis Diaz because I didn't massively trust his minutes. I always say this about the Liverpool midfielders that aren't Salah. They all carry a bit of risk with them, particularly in terms of minutes, right? Because Jota, Gakpo and Diaz, I believe, are all fit at the moment. So Diaz's minutes were good. His performances were good recently. I think that was enough to suggest that he would start. But I still knew there's always a little bit of risk with those Liverpool mids. Other 2, well, blanks really. Clean sheet, but a blank for Cole Palmer. I don't really know what I was doing picking him on my free hit. My gut was telling me that he's Cole. Well, I say, yeah. My gut instinct told me to pick him. They were saying, it's Cole Palmer, you know, he's an amazing player. But then there was a bit of me that was thinking, well, his form has just completely dropped off a cliff. And I completely have, you know, it's only 1 week as well. And I have complete free reign to pick anyone else. I probably should have done that. I don't regret my decision to pick Kluivert, though. Kept the clean sheet, got subbed off a little bit early against Man United before obviously they scored their last-minute equaliser. I just think at the moment, with the way the manager has openly said they're prioritising the Europa League, I just thought Man United were a team to target, basically, and Kluivert was the best Bournemouth option. Obviously, it was Semenyo that got an attacking return in that one. Up front, I've got Cunha, Raul Jimenez and Isak. I could have picked Evan Nilsson. I was so close to picking Evan Nilsson on the deadline stream. If anyone watched my Game Week 34 deadline stream, from the start, for quite a bit of it, I had Evan Nilsson in my team. And then, to be honest, I sort of crumbled and went for Raul Jimenez. I don't think it would have made much difference in terms of points in the end with that Evan Nilsson assist and red card. But I think that was such an unlucky red card for Evan Nilsson as well. And owners can consider themselves quite unlucky there. Cunha, I mean, him against Leicester, the only risk was that he wasn't going to play. You know, the rumours to Man United, etc., etc. But I just thought all along, you know, he's by far and away Wolves' best player. If they've got any chance of finishing as high as possible in the league, they need to be starting him every game, in my opinion, and that's what they did. Goal to assist for him, very happy. And a goal for Isak as well. It was a penalty, not from open play, but, you know, we'll take what we can get from him. Looking at my bench, I think I've largely made the right decision. You've got Trent on 5 points. The rest of my defence outscored him. Iwobi on 5. Would I have picked Iwobi over Palmer in hindsight? Maybe. I also had Bowen lingering around in there as well. That was a bit unfortunate. And then Sessegnon. I'm not going to knock you if you have Sessegnon or Jose Sarr, right? But I would say, because Sessegnon was playing in defence, and you don't get a penalty save every game. And I don't mean to insult managers who had them, but I do think a goal from a defender who may not have even started that game, and a penalty save is a little bit of luck. It's good fortune rather than luck. Well, both the same thing, aren't they? It's good fortune. And if you got it, fair enough. If you didn't, I just think you can consider yourself unlucky that it didn't go that way for you. Like if you picked a goalkeeper that wasn't Jose Sarr, like me with Nick Pope, or maybe you went for Kepa, something like that, I think you can consider yourself unlucky that Jose Sarr made that penalty save, basically. So, yeah, anyway, sort of rambling about other people's players and teams. That's how I've gotten on. All right, there's a couple of bits to get through before I get onto my team. Now, knowing my luck, I always record my weekday YouTube videos before I start work. So it's currently 7:30 a.m. at the moment. I would not be surprised at all to see a double game week 36 announcement or 37 announcement during the day while I'm at work. So this could all play out by the time this video goes out. But what I've done is my team is pretty agnostic of the fact it is unimpacted, is not impacted by what could happen here, right? It was probably a little spoiler as to who I've got. So Man City, Bournemouth, and Crystal Palace, Wolves will move from the weekend of Game Week 37, right? They both could move to Game Week 36, or they could also move to the midweek of Game Week 37. Ben Crellin believes the midweek of Game Week 37 is probably more likely. So that sort of rules out the chances, according to Ben Crellin, of a double actually happening in Game Week 36, although there is still a chance of that happening. Now, if the fixture moves to the midweek, it just means, it's a midweek fixture in that game week. Spurs have requested that their game versus Villa moves because it's only a few days before the Europa League final. I believe Villa have already rejected that request, so there's a chance that that doesn't happen. We do, as a result of all of that happening, those teams, Palace and Man City, reaching the FA Cup final and Spurs potentially getting to Europa League final, means that there's a chance that all of these teams could have a double game week in 36. Spurs, Villa, City, Bournemouth, Palace, Wolves. So we should know. He says we're very likely to know before the Game Week 35 deadline confirmation of these fixtures. It's just a case of whether the Premier League will be waiting for the Nottingham Forest Brentford game to play out. That's the only thing I could kind of think of, really, because there's nothing really delaying it now. No, we all know the results, etc. Or maybe again, they'll be waiting to see how Spurs get on. I don't know, but we should, according to Ben Crellin at least, get some news on this before the deadline. And if it comes out today, so be it. We already know what's happened, and I'll leave something in the comments about it. But like I said, my team doesn't really matter either way for me. All right, next up then, I've actually got some Rob T FPL data before I'm actually recording my team selection, which is really nice. And I'm looking at, I want to go through this data just to look at the standout teams, right? If you didn't know already, Rob T FPL is a really good source of betting data that can be transferred to FPL on X, right? Rob T FPL is his Twitter/X account. The reason I like this data and the reason I like going with bookmakers' data, whatever your opinion on gambling is, I don't have the strongest opinion on it myself. I'm not a gambler at all. But one thing you can appreciate is that gambling and betting companies, they invest millions and millions in projection algorithm data to try and make as much profit on bets, basically. They want to predict to as much certainty as possible the result of football games. And what we've got here is a translation of that to stuff that's actually helpful for FPL. So we've got each team's projected goals and each team's clean sheet odds for the game week. And you can see here, top teams for goals. I'll just reel off the ones that are shaded in. So Man City, Everton, interestingly, Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Leicester, Brentford, West Ham. They've all got kind of the top chances of scoring as many goals as possible, basically. Clean sheets wise, we've got Man City on 42, Everton on 44, Arsenal on 32. I think that could be a little bit higher given Bournemouth's current form. They've kind of dropped off a little bit of Bournemouth. Villa on 32, Brentford on 32, and Palace on 29. And those are your top teams for, according to the betting data at least, projected goals and clean sheet odds. All right, so moving on to my actual team then. Before I get into the players themselves, I've got 2 free transfers and $1 million in the bank. So just bear that in mind when I talk through my team. Raya in goal, Guardiola, Munoz, and Saliba. I think I'm going to go with this back four. I don't think I want to start Areola over Raya. I don't think I want to start Konsa or Dan Burn over Munoz this week. And I think, we saw Arsenal and Man City's clean sheet odds are pretty strong. I just don't see a reason to make a transfer in my defence, basically. There could maybe be an odd change on the bench, although I think Guardiola, Saliba, Raya are absolutely locked in. And to be honest, yeah, I can't really not pick Munoz either. Again, you know, we've got the potential of a double game week in 36 as well. So those percentage likelihood of a double game week happening are factored into future expected points. You see there with Guardiola, he's got slightly inflated expected points for 36 and then very low for 37 because, well, there's a chance he could blank in game week 37. So that's just showing you what the Fantasy Football Hub expected points data is showing you. But to be honest, I don't see, unless you have anything, I don't see any reasons to change this defense. Okay. So my midfield looks like this at the moment. I've got Salah, Saka, Murphy, and Rodgers. And I don't think I desperately need to make a transfer here. The one player I would be worried about, of course, is Saka. I do have Sarr on my bench who could, well, quite easily come in for him against Nottingham Forest at home, albeit that is not the best fixture. But I am a little bit concerned, as I imagine most Saka owners are, I'm a little bit concerned about the minutes he's going to get against Bournemouth. And you look at the fixtures after that, Liverpool and Newcastle, tough games. And the league title is already wrapped up. So Arsenal can't win the league. They're 1-0 down against PSG on aggregate in the Champions League. Playing them again next week. Here we go. We got the Arsenal fixtures here. Does he start this Bournemouth game? You know, if you were Arteta, would you start him? Knowing how much... The thing is with Saka as well, I think he certainly proved it against when he played Ipswich anyway with that Leif Davis tackle. I think Saka is one of the most kicked players in the game. He just gets... Every time I see him play, he just gets absolutely hammered by the opposition from bad tackles. PSG, I guess we're all right on him, but likes of Real Madrid and, yeah, he just gets hammered in quite a lot of games. Will Bournemouth do that? Probably. I don't know. But I don't think Arteta will want to take that risk. So I do think there's a chance that, well, he might not start. And that, just going back to Saka, with that Liverpool and Newcastle fixtures after that, they're not the best fixtures. Will Liverpool sort of roll over at Anfield against Arsenal? I think so. Yeah, I think I could end up selling Saka if I don't believe he's going to start against Bournemouth. And the player I would do that for, I think, is Brian Mbeumo. You know, he's had a season, albeit pretty much on a level with what Saka has produced in terms of numbers. It's 25 attacking returns, that is, in 33 appearances. He has massively overperformed his XG, to be fair. 18 goals from 10 XG, but I think that just shows how much of an elite finisher he is. He's got Man United at home, Ipswich away, Fulham at home and Wolves away in his last 4 fixtures of the season. I think those are pretty good fixtures. And also, I'll let you in on, well, a little secret. When you look at captaincy for game week 35, I'd say it's not really a secret. The two sources I like to use for expected points data, they have Mbeumo. Well, Fantasy Football Hub has Mbeumo as the 5th best captain this week. Basically joint on expected points. Sorry, this is for the next 5 game weeks. You can see there. They're all pretty similar. So the next, outside of Salah, the next top 4 are Palmer, Isak, Saka and Mbeumo. And they're all very similar in terms of expected points. And according to FPL Review, Mbeumo is the top player for expected points in Game Week 35. Forgive the projected points totals for Fantasy Football Hub. I forgot to set the filter off for the next 5 weeks, but you can see on the left, you've got the on the right, sorry, you've got the expected points for the game week, and these are the top 5 players. You factor all that in, even if I don't captain him, I think Brian Mbeumo could be a smart transfer in. But again, I'm gonna wait, just get the lay of the land in terms of Saka's minutes. I'm probably on the deadline stream before we make a call. Okay, my front 3 as it stands then, I've got Isak, Marmoush and Mateta. And, well, similarly to what I was saying about my defence, I just don't see a massive need to change it. You know, I think a lot of people will be on these 3 forwards. Yeah, I'm not too worried. I was a little bit put off of Mateta, but seeing how Palace dominated Villa in the FA Cup semi-finals, really impressed with their performance in that game. That sort of raised my impression of Mateta. I think Marmoush is, well, he's going to play good minutes against Wolves for Man City. And Isak, Brighton away, I think is a really good fixture. And in fact, if I were to keep my team as it was, remembering back to that expected points data, Salah still takes the lead over quite a lot of players. But I think it's arguably pretty close between Saka and Isak. When you think of, you know, take algorithms away from it, when you think of the emotion behind the game, Chelsea away is a tough place to go, flat out in general. You know, Chelsea not having the best of seasons, but they're still a tough team to beat, especially at Stamford Bridge. And Liverpool have literally just won the league. They were celebrating, definitely celebrating on Saturday night because they have no other competitions to play for, so they might as well have celebrated. Salah, you know, with his religious, you know, religion, etc., he wouldn't have been out drinking, to be fair. That's one of the things you can definitely consider with Salah. So he's probably going to be one of the freshest of that Liverpool team. But, you know, he still needs 10 other players around him to help him out. And I think Isak could well be a better captaincy choice. At the moment, I've stuck it on Salah, but I am really considering maybe moving it to Isak. Or if I bring in Mbumo, moving it to him as well. So that's a counter through my team. I think I'm considering bringing in Mbumo for Saka. And then I'm a little bit fast in, well, I'll say fast, it's probably one way of wording it, but a little bit loose in terms of who I'm going to captain this week. I'm not entirely sure. At the moment, it's on Salah. You know, I feel like that's safe. It could well go to Isak or even Mbumo if I bring him in. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Like I said, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm recording this video before work, that while I'm working today, the double game week gets announced. We know who's doubling and, you know, it's locked in. But I think for my team, you know, even if you watch that segment, that's the information I had at the time of making this video. But even with my team, I don't really mind what happens because for Game Week 35 at least, I don't desperately need to make a transfer. It's just a case of whether it's worth bringing Mbumo in for Saka and also maybe captaining him or captaining someone that isn't Mo Salah. I think those are the two big decisions I need to make. And none of them really rely on the double in 36 being confirmed. So yeah, anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Please leave a like rating if you did. Let me know in the comments if there's any changes that I haven't mentioned that you would make to my team. And yeah, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. It should be around there on your screen. And yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.